Good morning. Shall we start? Can you hear me, Dulani?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So last week we have discussed about food quality and sensory evaluation. Why is it important and how it's used? And first of all, I must talk about and I must remember Vimukti. So he's in hospital now. So we all can wish him speed recovery. So I don't know what happened to others. So anyway, we will discuss. So why food sensory evaluation is important. So all these things we have discussed with some examples, and you can see these pictures to get an image, get an idea about the applications. And multimodal perception. I suppose you can remember these things. Multimodal perception means we are going to use one or two or more single senses, neither for to get the to measure its sensory quality. You know, we have 5 senses, and we can use 5 senses. We can use one by one, or we can use together. And what are the advantages and standards? We have discussed about 3 standards: BSI standards, ISO standards, and ASTM standards. Right then. I have discussed some sensory assessment method with you. There are different types of test methods, right? Can you remember? Discrimination, descriptive. Likewise, there were different types of test methods, and we have categorized these test methods based on its qualitativeness and how we are going to use it for qualitative measurements and quantitative measurements. And some test methods, it is we use such test method for both qualitative and quantitative, because because all these test methods are available, but I have categorized these test methods based on qualitative and quantitative methods. But I must say there are some methods we can use such method for both qualitative and quantitative. So you have to remember. And the triangular test, you can remember what is triangular test and how it works, and duo trio test and paired comparison test. We have discussed all these things in the last discussion, right? Can you remember in the triangle test we have discussed that there are 3 samples. Neither. When it comes to a triangle, you know there are 3 samples, and we are going to select the different sample. You know, 2 similar samples and 1 different sample out of these 3. So we ask the panel member to select the different sample. And moving to the duo trio test. So you know there are again 3 samples, but 1 reference sample is there, and then we ask somebody to compare these 2 samples and select the appropriate and most similar sample to the reference one, right? Choose the sample that matches the reference, right? Here you can see A, B, and A dash. So you know reference sample is there, and 2 other samples, right? Then we ask somebody to first sense this one and then these 2 and select the matching sample, right? And the last one we discussed last discussion, paired comparison test. You know what is paired comparison test? It is a type of force method, right? We force the panel members to select one out of these 2. There are only 2 samples, right? And we can perform it as a series, right? We can perform it as a series. It means, suppose there are 10 samples, right? Suppose there are 10 samples. Sorry. one factor is different, right? It means you have prepared 10 T samples, right? 10 T samples with different sweet taste. It means for the first cup, you add 0.5 gram. For the last cup, you add 5 grams, likewise. Then you can do this paired comparison. Take first 2 samples and present and ask the member to select the best one. Then the selected one and third sample, right? අපි දෙකක් මුලින් දෙනවා එකකින් එකක් තෝරගෙන තුන්වෙනි එකත් එක්ක එක compare කරනවා. Then select the best one and compare with the fourth one. Likewise, you can do a series, right? It will take much time, so but anyway, you can do it. In your final year research, you need to definitely you have to do a sensory analysis. For most of the researchers, you have to do. So always we can see our students are perform well, so they are doing sensory part very well, but you all have to do, right? Okay, then we are moving today we are moving the descriptive method, right? Descriptive we have discussed in the last week. Descriptive means a detailed one. It means that is quantitative methods. Descriptive means a quantitative method, but sometimes we can use descriptive test method for the qualitative tests as well. But mostly frequently we use it for qualitative method. And this is actually an informative test methods. Suppose we have discussed, right? And we use the descriptive analysis for detailed analysis. When you are working in a company, next time you are going to work, then they ask you to develop a food product, right? Then what you have to do is, example, it is a dairy company, right? So they ask to develop a new yogurt. Then first you have to do is, take the similar samples, right? There are different types of yogurt. You know, frozen yogurts are there, milk yogurts are there, jelly yogurts are there. So different types of yogurts are there. Then if the manager told you a particular product, then you can select, or if not, you have to analyze the market. What types of yogurts are there in the market? Their prices, qualities, and market shares. All these things you have to measure. That is belong to management and marketing part. When it comes to product development and sensory, you know, then you have to sense all these samples and select the best one, and then develop your own product based on the requirement and compare again with the competitive sample, right? Then you have to do a sensory profile analysis. Sensory profile analysis means, you know, the meaning of profile, right? Profile means a detailed one. The next year, you have to prepare your profile, right? It means your CV, right? So profile means a detailed analysis, right? And since this is a quantitative method, then what we have to do is, can we use untrained one, or can we perform market analysis? Yes or no?
No, sir. We have to use untrained.
Why?
Because it is a quantitative, so we have to compare all the informations and analysis. So we have to use the trained assessors.
Excellent. Yes. So we can't use untrained or social panelists. So we in here highly trained assessors we have to use, right? And as we have discussed, we can use for in this type of test methods we are using both qualitative and quantitative. And here you can see what type of tests we can perform, right? There are standard test methods, and I'm not going to discuss all these test methods. If you are interested, you can read I have already shared few books with you and research paper. So, but you need not to remember these things, but you just understand. You just remember there are different types of descriptive methods are available, right? Flavor profile analysis, texture profile analysis. We can perform it by using a texture profile analyzer, and spectrum method, quantitative descriptive analysis, right? Right. Likewise, different test methods are available. All these test methods are uh, have been designed in order to the ISO and ASTM standards. You can see quantitative QDA and its ISO number, right? Standard. So assessors have been trained to use attribute scale in a similar manner. Fewer data points are per product. It means all these assessors and panel members should be well trained and reduce the deviation. Right? Reduce the deviation is very important. It means vague answers should have to be avoided. It means suppose we present one chocolate for 10 people in your batch. Among your batch members, suppose there are around 25 people. So then we ask, we give the ballot paper to mark. Then what happened? Then what happened? You know, we can, there will be different answers. So, you know, vague answers sometimes, right? And gender basis, right? Especially girls, they like to eat chocolates, but boys, they don't like. So vague answer should be there. So that should be avoided, right? So that is the meaning. So we use highly trained panel and few data points. But I will discuss these things later, right? So I suppose it is clear. And the descriptive analysis we can combine. So they are in actually the sensory analysis is it's a different field. So you can use these theoretical parts together to design a new one. So here you can see we can use descriptive analysis with consumer analysis. It means suppose you are going to develop a new product. It might be a noodles, right? Noodles using a jack seed flour, right? Then you can do descriptive analysis as well as market analysis. We will be discussing what are the market analysis later. So how to compare these two methods? You know, basically, you know, we have to use around 100 to 200 people for market analysis. Then get the outputs of that research and compare, and we can perform a descriptive analysis as well parallelly. Then amalgamate all these two results to get the output of this research. So how to do these amalgamations? Um, that then you can think, right, based on your requirements. We can use different types of test methods together, right? But there are some standard sampling methods are there, right? You know, sampling methods are there, and how to use test methods, its scope, it's very important, right? So I just wanted to explain you we can use descriptive analysis for different research and projects, right? Ranking tests are the type of descriptive test method. So ranking means you just rank something. You just rank. So you need not to remember all the theories. Just understand the topic, right? The topic can take if it is an abstract or a topic or a summary. It means it will represent all the content. So ranking test means it's a method of ranking. So you just remember the name. So if it is a ranking, in this slide you can see 3 pictures and 3 numbers. The numbering and labeling is again very important. Basically, we don't use vague numbers. It means sometimes you you may use 1, 2, and 3. We never use, right? Sometimes you can use 22, 33, 44 like numbers or labels. We never use because the numbers, there should not be a sequence, or basically we are not going to use the numbers which we can easily remember. So as I have mentioned you, 33, 44 like numbers, it is easy to remember. So then some vague answers may happen. So therefore, when we put labels, we basically use numbers and basically use three basically use 3 figures as I mentioned here, and always you have to avoid vague and biasing effect. You have to avoid. Then what is the reason behind that? Suppose there is a sensory panel. There are around 15 members. So then the first member says this and select 837. It is sometimes a little bit difficult to remember, right? Then if the number is 333, so he can easily remember. Then he told the result to the another panelist. He might share the message, right? So that should be avoided. And sometimes we have in our personal interests. numbers personal interest, right? That's why we always try to get a VIP number for our mobile phone and our vehicle, 001 gun Raikana, and we try to get 222, or likewise we are always try to get a good number for our mobile as well, right? Then you can understand how our brain works, right? So that is the reason behind that. So never use similar numbers and easily remember numbers. So here in ranking method, ranking tests, then we ask panelists to rank these product based on its psychological powers, right? And we use overall sensory quality here and assessors preference. As we discussed, first we have to select the sensory panel. This is actually a descriptive method. So trained sensory panel should be there, right? And there might be 3, 4, 5, or 10 or 20 samples, and we ask them to rank the samples based on his preference, right? There are 3 samples. We just consume, we just sense and numbering and ranking. So that is actually different. That's why the ranking tests belongs to descriptive method, right? Like because we are using overall sensory quality. You know the attributes, color, flavor, texture, smell, like different attributes are there, but here we use the overall method, right? Overall method is little bit different, right? Then we can rank. What is the best one? It is 837 is the best one. Then 315 second, and last one is 642. Then finally, it is possible to get all the results and analyze and easily select the best sample, right? And parallelly, as we have discussed earlier, we can do we can ask a large panel, untrained panelists, to do the same test, to perform to participate for the same method and trial and get their result and you can compare the two results by using a statistical software, right? Maybe Minitab or SPSS, right? So such experiment you can do. Sensory analysis means it's a vast area, and you can nowadays we are doing a PhD in our faculty for the sugar taste analysis with different sound. And the second part of that PhD is sensing qualities and perception levels of sugar with light, different light environment. So you can do actually this very good area. Then when you are doing, if you are doing your research, then you can perform such analysis with different people. It differs, right? How to differ it, right? Right. Then we can move to the scaling method. There is one descriptive method, scaling, and we call it as rating method. And there are three, we can divide it into three subcategories. So I have divided all these things for easy to remember. So don't worry about the categories, right? I just categorize based on its similarities. So you need not to remember the category methods, right? Just remember what are the descriptive, discrimination tests and its subcategories, right? Here we are going to use the perception level. It means quantification. What is the perception? You know, it is actually a decision. Perception means it's actually in the management, in the marketing management also we discuss about perception. It means power of buying or consuming. The human or brain power, cognitive power, and the thinking power on a particular product or service, right? Likewise, when it comes to sensory evaluation, perception means the trend of human brain to consume it, right? Sometime it after consuming or before consuming. You have this experience in day-to-day life. So you just suppose imagine that you are going through a food street. You just see some food product. First time you see, and you never taste it, you never visited it. Then you think that it is a very good one. I have to consume it twice or thrice. Right. Likewise, you can get decisions based on your brain power or cognitive power. So here also we are going to measure it, and in this paper you can easily understand it. Show you. Can you see this screen? Can you see this screen? This figure?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
In this figure, you can see this figure. You can see as a stimulus response model. Right. This is actually a very good research article, and the picture is very good. So there are 5 methods, and there are two major groups: sensory process and cognitive process. You know the sensory process very well now, right? You know the sensory process we have discussed, and cognitive process means the brain process, and we are going to discuss the cognitive process now. And you know there is a stimuli, right? Then sensory signal is going to brain through 5 senses we have discussed, an internal representation and or might be a coordination, and sensorio hedonic magnitude. So we just see, just look at a food product, then stimulus are there, then how to measure it. That is quantification, right? We are discussing that part today, hedonic magnitude and response, right? And response. This is actually a very complex process and a different area, that is not about food processing. It is belongs to medicine, like medical sciences. But you have to remember, you have to understand what is the process. So this is very important. So there are two methods. Okay. And we have already discussed about sensory process last week, and today cognitive process. Okay. Right. Then all these things are belongs to cognitive process. Okay. Then there are three methods: intensity rating, hedonic rating, rating scales. So very similar words, right? Very similar words and test method. Sometimes there are the two test method can be overlap in some area. So I just categorize to make you understand. So do not consider about that one, right? Intensity rating. So intensity means, what is the meaning of intensity? And here we are going to measure intensity or likeliness. Again, there are one tail test and two tail test, right? You know what are the one tail and two tail? You have completed basic statistics. So I'm not going to explain. I will show you a picture to remember. Right here, you can see a two tail one, right, and one tail man. One tail means here the significance level is 0.05 one side, and here the significance level is there but shared, right, for both sides, 0.025 and 0.025, right? So that is the difference between one tail and two tail test methods. Right? See this? So one tail and two tail. Okay. It's a two tail. You can see 0.025 shared. What do you call the significance level? But in one tail, you can see 0.505, right? But shared. Okay. Then we will discuss what and hedonic rating. This is very important in sensor analysis. Hedonic rating. Definitely, you have to use hedonic methods in your research and product developments. Degree of likeness, good or badness, unipolar and bipolar. We will discuss what are the unipolar and bipolar test. And there are some rating scales, right? And two types of rating scales. Again, category scales and graphical methods, right? And give me your idea about the categories 5, 9, and 30. Can you observe any similarity for these three numbers? ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ අංක වල මොකක් හරි වෙනසක් පේනවද? කැටගරි ස්කේල් වල? No idea. And the first one, intensity rating, right? You can see one tail, two tail, and frequently we use unipolar. It means one side and flavor. So you can see a ballot paper. We call it as a ballot paper. Ballot paper එකක් කියනවා මේ sensory වලදී පාවිච්චි කරන sheet එකකට. Here you can see a format of ballot paper which have been developed for the intensity rating. So go through the characteristics, name and date is there, and little introduction should be there. Evaluate the 5 bean samples for hardness in the order shown in on the ballot from top to bottom. Bite down once with the molar teeth on the sample of beans, 2 beans together, right? Hardness is the force required to penetrate the sample. Place a vertical line on the horizontal line scale at the position that indicates the hardness of the bean sample. Suppose you can remember, suppose you can understand, right? They are going to do a research, they have planned a research for bean, and you can see they are going to measure its texture, hardness. And here 5 samples, not hard to hard. This is the scale, right? Not hard to hard. Then you can put a mark on based on your perception, based on your preference, right? And ballot paper for bean hardness scoring test using a line scale. Actual scale is 15 centimeter. From here to here, 15 centimeter. Then it means there are 15 numbers, right? Then if you mark here, then the research team can quantify your perception, right? Understood? Intensity rating. So we are going to measure the magnitude of perception, and I think that you all can understand what I explained, right? And the format of a ballot paper is important, and you can design, you can put your university logo here and more description. I am blah 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 blah. We are performing such experiment. So you can write, you can incorporate all these details here, but very short details, because the panel member, he or she has to understand it quickly, right? Then the second one, right? Second one, hedonic ratings. So hedonic test, it has a very good history. I'm not going to explain. You just type hedonic scales and you can read. Hedonic rating is a different one, and basically we use it for quantitative measures, right? And capturing liking, disliking data. Hedonic scales are well tried and tested in consumer research for capturing liking and disliking data. The most widely used scale for measuring food acceptability is the 9-point hedonic scale. Still, can't you understand any similarity between these numbers? Right? Still, I'm asking the question. So you have a chance to answer. A scale with 11 intervals would be even more effective. So now frequently we use 9-point hedonic scales, but 11 point is the most effective one. But if there are more numbers, it is difficult. In your A levels, you have 4 answers in your MCQ paper, MCQ answers 4 but in your studying in university, they have 5 answers. So you know the difficulty. Likewise, here the 9-point hedonic scale and 11-point hedonic scale. Basically, we use 9, but 11 is the most effective one. This is the most important thing. Equal interval should be maintained. How to determine these equal intervals? How to determine? Psychological distance. You know the psychological distance between verbal anchors of the scale and also in between the numerical value, right? I will explain. The equal interval properly helps justify the practice of analyzing the responses by assigning successive integer values to the scale points and testing different average acceptability. It means we use such numbers. Normally we use odd numbers. That is the reason I was waiting, right? I was waiting for your answer. Normally we use odd numbers. What is the reason for using odd numbers? To maintain the middle value 0 or neutral. It means if it is a bipolar test, right? If it is a bipolar test, in the middle value you can see no effect. It means 0. And if it is a unipolar product, unipolar scale, here also it is if there are 4 responses, so it is difficult to select the middle one, right? That is the reason to use odd numbers, right? And always we keep the middle value neutral or 0. In this example also, this is actually a 9-point hedonic scale. Middle value means 5, so you can see it's neutral, neither like or dislike. And here also no effect. Right. So likewise, we use hedonic scales. Different hedonic scales are there: 7 point, 5 point, 9 point, 11, 13. So if we can use higher number, might be 11 or 13 or more than 9, it means the test is very good and panel also very good. Making it is little complex. And we also can use such phases. You can see the middle value. It is a little bit neutral, good, right? By comparing to the end value. So hedonic ratings are very important in designing questionnaires, in designing ballot papers, and when you are conducting sensory profile analysis, right? Still you have, I think already you have an idea how to do a sensory analysis, right? How to do it. You just present a food sample and there is a panel. There are 3 or 4 or 5 samples and ask the panel to select the best one. And you have to design your ballot paper and the test according to the standards. And these are the methods to use in developing your ballot paper. Okay. Then the third one, rating scale. Rating scale, right? First one is ranking. Then the second one is hedonic. Third one is ranking. And as we have discussed, there are 2 rating scales, category scales and graphical method. And here also we measure magnitude of perception of 1 or more sensory attributes of a sample. So sometimes we can use 1 or more. And category scale, there are different scale. Here also you can see the scale. All are odd numbers, 5, 9, 11, and 13, as we have discussed in the hedonic scale, right? And basically we perform for trained panelists. For trained panelists, we have to select 11 to 13 scales, as we have discussed. You know, if they are trained panelists, they have knowledge, they are professionals in conducting. So scale should be, higher scale should be there. For untrained, you can see 5 to 9 as we have discussed. So basically we are not going to use descriptive methods for untrained, but you can use, no problem. As I told you, these are very big area, very good scope. And category scale, very similar, right? As I told you, very similar. Here also you can see category scale. As an example, weak to strong. Might be a flavor or color, weak to strong. Weak means 1, strong means 9. So there is a intensity ratings 1 to 9. So you can select one number out of these 9. And whether the sample is oxidized or not. And you can see the verbal anchors. Not noticeable to very strong. You can select, right? Then based on your hedonic scale, you can use these verbal anchors. And in designing these verbal anchors, the psychological distance should be there. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් ඔයා එක සැරේටම not acceptable very bad කියලා දෙවෙනි එක අපි පහක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා නම් good කියලා එහෙම ඔයාට ඕන ඕන විදිහට පාවිච්චි කරන්න බෑ. When we are using 9 scale, then it is we shall break down it properly. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉතා හොඳයි ඉතා නරකයි කියන අතරේ ඒ උත්තර ටික අපි 9 point පාවිච්චි කරන 9කට හරියටම බෙදන්න. Based on our idea. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට idea එක වෙන විදියට. Right? Here you can use properly this one. It is number 1, dislike extremely. Number 9, like extremely. 2, dislike very much. 8, like very much. Then dislike moderately, like moderately. Dislike slightly, like slightly. So you can see the similarity and psychological distance in between these two verbal anchors. Right? That is very important to maintain. Here also you can see very large negative, very large positive, substantial negative, substantial positive, moderate negative, moderate positive, small negative, small positive. Likewise, verbal anchors are always similar. Always using the similar distance. Got it? Right. Suppose you can understand the category scales also. And here also you can see category scales. Right? Some examples. At graphical scale, 9-point hedonic scale, you can see the hedonic scale, the x-axis and the y-axis, number of responses. And ABC, what are the ABC? Here not mentioned. So you can create such graph or a web diagram. Web diagram. You can easily design this web diagram using Excel. I will share how to do it. And please remember the method to create it. These are the edges. You can see sensory attribute. Here he or she has used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right? 11 attributes are there. Can somebody suggest the hedonic scale? No. Can somebody suggest? Hansika? Make a hedonic scale එක guess කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? Web diagram එකේ? Prashant? Prashant? Nobody wants, eh? Okay. Here you can see the scale 0 to 10. 0 to 10. It means it should be a 9-point hedonic scale. ඔයගොල්ලෝ හැමෝටම පේනවනේ මෙතන 9ට කිට්ටුවටම ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනනේ. ඒකේ 9 point එකක් වෙන්න ඕන මේක. 10 කියලා එකක් නෑ. මේ 10 means මේ graph එකේ එනකොට you know, basically 0 to 10, you know. If it is a 13.0 to 15, you know the Excel and all the how the softwares are behave. But you have to imagine what is the hedonic scale, right? And how to use. So how to select the best sample now? එතකොට මේ පැත්තට ලංම වෙනවා කියන්නේ to 10 වලට ලං වෙනවා කියන්නේ that is the best one නේ. So easily you can select using graphical scale. Okay, this is a summary. This is a summary. Descriptive analysis, right? What are the attributes we can use, and word anchors, right? This table is very important to you. So imagine you are going to perform a test to measure its surface. Sorry, not going to check the texture. Then, you know, as we have discussed, there are 5 phases. There are 5 phases. Surface, the first bite, first chew down, and residual. So for each phase, there are attributes. Surface again, when we are taking the food product into the mouth, we can imagine roughness, particles, and dryness. These are the word anchors, right? These are the word anchors in determining hedonic scales or any scales. Smooth to rough, very smooth, likewise, very rough. These are the word anchors, examples, right? First bite, crumbly to bright, right? Residual, oiliness, how to measure the oiliness? Dry to oily. You can decide the scales. So you need not to remember, but just remember few things. These words are important, technical terms are important. And the summary here, right? Discrimination tests we have discussed. Descriptive tests we have discussed. Hedonic tests we have discussed. So by using these summary, using these questions, you can easily understand the differences in between these 3 methods, right? When it comes to discrimination tests, we are going to ask, is this product the same as that? Is this one different? How great is the difference? Like questions. But for descriptive methods, we are going to ask, what does this product taste like? What are its perceived sensory characteristics? How does change in process? How do these products differ from one another in sensory quality? Like you can observe, you have to understand the difference in between these questions. When it comes to hedonic taste, do you like this product or don't you like this product? If you like, how much do you like? Is it acceptable? Right? Likewise, do you prefer this one? Likewise, different questions. So my question again, just we ask, is this product same or different? How great the difference? Likewise questions. But here, descriptive methods, we are going to ask some detailed questions, right? But in hedonic tests, again we ask ratings or any magnitude, right? So you can read the questions one by one and understand. And different test methods. This is a summary. Consumer test yet to be discussed. The next slide. So at least 100 representatives. Discriminative need around 25. And you can read more details. I just put this table to understand the differences in between these methods. When it comes to descriptive, you can understand, you can see here very little respondents panel. right? So likewise, finally, if somebody can use product experts, then the panel member should be 3 to 5, very low. So likewise, you can understand the differences in between these methods, right? Then we discuss method one by one, and finally you have to prepare this table, right? Suppose descriptive discrimination test methods are over now. There are so many things to be discussed, but I suppose that the area and the things we have discussed it enough, right? Then the last one, affective tests. Very interesting test methods, type of test methods, affective tests. We have discussed its characteristics. Basically, we use affective test for consumer surveys. Okay? And it is a subjective test methods, right? We can use for qualitative and quantitative methodologies, but basically we use for qualitative methods, right? Researchers can gain an insight into consumer, native consumers, their preferences, attitudes, opinions, behaviors, and perceptions concerning products. And we use untrained panels. And we select the panel randomly, right? We have discussed all these things. Randomly select and voluntarily select. And basically, large number of panels are there. At least 100 members should be there because they are untrained panel. Okay. Okay. And when selecting the people, and before that, based on the product, we have to select the panel, right? We have discussed if it is an infant product, then we are not going to select infants, but mothers. Ne? So the selecting of the respondents, the respondent categories and characteristics are important. Then we select random sample. And before selecting geographical regions, demographic means age, whether they are male or female, and education level, like these things, and psychographics, lifestyle, product usage, like all these factors should be considered. Geographical locations we have discussed in Jaffna people, they basically, according to my vision, always they tend to use colored beverages, right? Red color, orange color, green color. But in southern region, they are not consuming colored products. So geographical deviations are there, right? So the geographical deviations are there. So it is very important to consider. And demographics, the males and females, their perception levels are different. So each factor should be considered before conducting this type of test method. And effective tests, these are advantages and disadvantages for a particular test method. And you can read and understand. I am not going to explain. And this is a summary for effective, descriptive, and discriminative test method. Finally, you can read it and understand. I have already discussed these test methods. And effective tests, when we are conducting effective test with the society, selected randomly selected people, to get their consent is very important. You can't force them to do, right? Before conducting, you have to get their consent. And information should also be provided. A different sheet is there. We call it as information sheet. Right? Information sheet should be provided to the consumer and give time and ask he or she to read it carefully and get the panelist signature and then you can conduct the test. If it is a food product, before conducting effective test, it is very important to confirm whether the product is okay for consumers. You are not allowed to use new food products for the consumers if it is a high risk product based on its internal reactions and its ingredient reactions and its qualities. There are a series of you have to perform a series of methods. First of all, you have to get ethical clearances from a particular university. In our university also, we have ethics review committee, ERC. You just search in Google, ERC, SJP, and Columbia University, all universities we have. First, you have to develop the product and get their consent, whether it is okay to conduct this test or not. Then sometimes they will ask us to do a rat model. It means before go to the consumers, humans, you have to present this food, develop food product to rats or rabbits, right? There are test methods thereafter you have to go to the clinical trials. Clinical trials they can selected people, with the selected people you have to do it. Can you remember that how to find the COVID vaccine? They also did the clinical trials, right? Okay, these are the things, test methods to be discussed. I think it's very clear to you. If you have any questions, now you can ask. If not, I am going to move to the next one, last one. It is again interesting. Now it's time for your questions, or if not, we can continue the next one. As always, you don't have questions, right? And I will ask questions for your exam. Okay. The last one, how to select a sensory panel, right? Now the test method, you know, the basis of the sensory, you know, sensory process, you have understood, and all things are okay. So finally, I'm going to discuss about the very important things in conducting sensory analysis, how to select a sensory panel, and how to perform a study, right? Before selecting a sensory panel, you have to decide members and number of assessors, basic requirements. You have idea about the number of assessors, right? Abilities and responsibilities, good practices we will be discussing. Right. Sensory panel, these are the qualifications. Good health. If we are going to use a trained panel for like a descriptive method, then their attitudes and experience should be evaluated, interviewed and placed. Good sensitivity, virtuous communication skills, ability to do independent judgment, right? Decision making power. So when we are conducting sensory studies, sensory panels, we can see we are performing sensory panels nowadays with our students. So they are not going to put their own decision. They just ask the other closer people and his friend. That should not happen. So independent judgments and decision making power is very critical. And excellent discrimination skills. Discriminate, how to discriminate the product. In this picture also you can see how she is going to sense it. So the discrimination power is very important. These are the sensory panels we have already discussed: untrained, semi-trained, trained, consumer panels, and household panels, right? There are different types of panels we have already discussed. And important factors, their age is very important. omit low and high age categories due to the weak sensation and mirage of discrimination power. You know, when with the age, higher ages, they don't have discrimination power. They just put one answer. And the children and below age 18, they also don't have any responsibility and the discrimination power. And the body states, drowsy people, sick people, lethargic or hunger people, we are not going to use. Right? Very healthy people we always use. Adaptation for all senses attributes. You know, some people they can't bear some senses. So that sort of that types of people we are not going to use. And diurnal factors. Diurnal factors mean environmental factors, light conditions, daytime. All these factors are very important. And personal habits, smoking, chewing beetles. The people they are consuming drugs, we never use. Right? These factors are very important. And inside the place we are going to conduct the sensory, the temperature, recommended temperature according to the ISO and ASTM standards, you can see what is the relative humidity, light luminosity, and environmental conditions. These factors should be very important. When you are starting your thesis or the project report, if it is a sensory analysis, you have to measure all these factors and age, and if you use the people, then panel members' age and their body status, BMI value, all these factors should be mentioned. And there are some test methods to select the sensory panel. You know how to select the sensory panel. There are different types of tests. Interviews, like, right? If there are 100 people, then finally you have to get around 20 people. How to screening? These are the methods to screen, right? We have to perform absolute threshold test, different threshold level test, recognition of threshold level, dilution test, and taint potential. Before selecting the panel, all these tests should be conducted, right? Absolute threshold. Do you have lecture or lectures? Then right. What is the absolute threshold level? It means the minimum amount of sensory stimulus required for human sensation. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට sense වෙන්න අවශ්‍ය minimum ප්‍රමාණය. You know, our hearing absolute threshold level is 20 hertz. අපිට ඇහෙන්නේ hertz 20,000 නේ. Right? So that is the 20 hertz is the lowest level. And just for example, imagine that imagine you are going to taste salt taste of a curry. Right? Lunu බලන්න යනවා curry එක. So the AT level is different for a particular person. සමහරට ලුණු ටිකක් වැඩි වුණාම තමයි මුලින්ම sense වෙන්නේ. සමහරට ලුණු ටිකක් ගෑවුණත් අපි කියන රස දැනෙනවා කියලා, right? Such conditions are there. So how to conduct this absolute threshold level, right? How to conduct it? We are going to prepare a series of salt or sugar or any selected one. Basically, we use sugar or salt from 1% to 10%, right? 1% to 10%, or 1% to 20%, or 5 to 20. It is dependent on the panel. And ask the panel members to select the absolute threshold level. It means the lowest concentration of salt or sugar started their sensation. Might be 2% or 5%. Then we are going to analyze this graph, like you can see. This graph you can see low, absolute threshold, and medium, right? Sensitivity means concentrations, as we have discussed, and the percentage of correct detections. Then this is the absolute threshold level, the minimum medium value. අපි මැද level එක තමයි තෝරගන්නේ. අපි හිතමු අපි 1 to 10 දුන්න නම් සමහරු 5 කිව්වනම් සමහරු 7 කිව්වනම් අපි 7යි 5යි අතර තමයි ගන්න. Right? That is based on the responses. Then the dilution test ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකේ අනිත් පැත්ත. Right? The second one, here the panel members asked to detect at what concentration they didn't feel the sensation. It is the just opposite the ATL. Right? Here you can see high concentration, low concentration. But in ATL, we prepare low concentration to high concentration and ask the panel members to select the, in here, select the, at what concentration they didn't feel the sensation. This is little bit different test. Make it ටිකක් අමාරුයි ATL එකට වඩා. Right? කොතෙන්ද අපිට flavor එක දැනෙන්නේ නැත්තේ කියලා අපි අහනවා. Likewise, you can see different colors. Right? Yellow color, you can select yellow or red color and different chromosities and ask at what stage you can observe the color or at what stage you can't observe the color. And different threshold level, the third one, the select panelists from the ATL are asked to perform DTL to test, to identify their ability to recognize the difference in between two or more food samples. Use their discriminative power to determine, right? Different threshold means if they are get selected for these two tests, then ask them to identify the difference in between food sample. Samples, very similar samples කීපයක් අපි දෙනවා ඒගොල්ලන්ට දීලා different sample එක අඳුර ගන්න කියනවා. As we perform in triangular test. අපිට triangular test එකක් වගේ එකක් මෙතනදි කරන්න පුළුවන්. Here we analyze their discrimination power. Right? And recognition threshold level, it is the next one. Standard you can see. Here, concentration of the food substances that is just enough to recognize or describe sensory properties. Right? Recognition threshold level කියන්නේ it is just absolute threshold level. Right? You can see absolute threshold level. Absolute threshold level means at what stage he or she starts to sense. But here, recognition threshold level means at what stage he or she, the panel member, can recognize or describe the sensory properties. ඒතර DTL එක තියෙන්නේ ATL වඩා චුට්ටක් එහායි. Right? Understood? Here you can see example. Detection threshold and recognition threshold level you can see here. Sucrose detection threshold is 10.9 and recognition threshold is 29.3. Right? For different solutions, you can see some values that is also fluctuated based on the panel. Right? You can read and understand, nothing to discuss. And 10 potential is one of the very important test method. Here we are going to select and analyze the negative effect for the product. It means maximum level. As an example, you know, when we are preparing tea, plain tea, using tea, there is a maximum level of ingredients. It වඩා ගත්තොත් අපිට ඒක බොන්න බෑ. And for salt, that is very common example, there is a maximum level of ingredient. For we can't consume after that. Right? Then what we are practicing, we are doing is basically we use salt or sugar or any spice we just prepare a series of solutions as we have discussed with higher concentrations and ask the panelists to sense these samples and determine at which stage you can observe its negative effect. Right? Negative effect එක තමයි එකෙන් අපි බලන්නේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා සුවඳ වැඩි වෙනවම ගඳ දැනෙනවා වගේ අපි අහලා තියෙනවා. So that is also taint potential. Right? Negative effect එකක් අපිට එනවා. We use spices to for the value addition process, for the flavor added process, and when we use higher amount, you know, it is difficult to bear. Right? So taint potential is important, and screening set test methods are also there. It means now we have conducted 5 or 6 tests, right? We have already conducted 5 tests. Now the panel, as I told you earlier, initially there were 100 members, but now it's around 50 to, might be 50 or 25 or 10. After conducting all these test methods, you have to analyze the data and determine the members. Still, if we have more members as we expected, right? Then we are going to perform screening tests, right? A different type of test methods, screening test methods. The objective of conducting screening test is for further screening. And there is a test called matching test, right? Also a type of training for the panelists, select to analyze their training, all these things. Compare the tastes in between competitive samples and the developed or unavailable samples. You just remember there are some test methods called screening tests, and objective of these test methods are further screening, right? Those are the things we have to consider before selecting a sensory panel, and planning sensory evaluation is very important. First of all, you have to define your objective of sensory analysis. Then the test objectives should be defined. It means what is the purpose of conducting of this sensory evaluation? Sensory right? You have developed a product, right? As we discussed, you have developed a new yogurt. So the objective of this sensory analysis is to what? To measure its might be shelf life. On the other hand, to measure the best sample, right? To measure the best sample and to finalize the or to develop to select the appropriate competitive sample, and then define the test objective. First we decided the sensory analysis. What is the objective of conducting sensory analysis? Then the test. In the test objective might be selecting the best sample with best flavor, right? Or determine the shelf life of this particular yogurt. That is the objective of the study, not the sensory analysis, right? Then screen the samples. We have discussed how to screening. Then select the suitable sensory panel. Determine the test methods. What type of test methods we are going to perform, or triangular test, or what type of test, and perform the sensory analysis. Collect and analyze the data using statistical softwares or Minitab, Excel, or SPSS. We have different types of softwares, and get result and discussions. This is the plan. This is the way of conducting a sensory evaluation is very important. You have to follow all these steps. And handling of data is again important. Confidentially, you have to do it. And result analysis is also important. How to select the test method, how to select the particular what do you call it? The calculation methods, all these factors are important. And you can see in this picture how they are performing. Nobody wants to discuss together, right? Nobody wants to discuss. They are personally they are doing honestly, right? And equal situations are there. All people have equal situation. Temperature, color, and other furnitures, all the factors are similar. And basically, we use this type of sensory booth in conducting sensory analysis. Here also you can see the sensory booth, and we have already ordered this type of sensory booth for us, right? And their characteristics, you can see what type of characteristic should be there. Table, chair, and sample, and from backside you can see sample presenting area. පිටිපස්සෙන් තමයි මේක මේ ඉස්සරහින් ඇවිල්ලා කැම දෙන්නේ නැහැ. පිටිපස්සෙන් මේ ඩෝ එකෙන් තමයි present කරන්නේ. These such facilities should be there, right? Why the people are leaving? We have lecture. Okay, and typical test room should be comprises all these factors, as I told you. Easily accessible, free from odors, any odors, all these things are important. And there should be different areas: preparation area, meeting area, office, cloakrooms, test rooms, toilets, all these factors are important. Here you can see the basic plan of a sensory analysis. Sensory area, meeting room should be there, office, testing booths, right? Preparation area, storage room, all these things are important. And test kit, you know, the water glasses, tissues, plates are important in conducting sensory analysis. So you can read and understand the last few pages, few slides. So if you have any questions, you better to ask. And I suppose that we have discussed the factors.
So can you explain the recognition threshold test one more, please? I can't understand.
Recognition threshold?
Yes.
Okay, I'll explain it again. So these are the things you can read and understand. So I'm not going to read again. Recognition threshold. You know the recognition threshold means, absolute threshold means at what stage, at what concentration he or she or the panelist can identify that or detect the detect the flavor or the attribute, right? As we explained, we have prepared 10 or 15 sugar samples. At what concentration the panelist can identify its sugar as it is a sugar, right? The sorry, you asked about this one. Recognition threshold mean at what stage, right? It means the sample size or the concentration or the concentration just enough to recognize and describe sensory properties. It means that is different. In the first ATL, we have discussed at what stage we can just identify, but we can't describe it. This is sugar, this is the aroma is this type, like you can't describe. As an example, there are very tiny particles of from different pizzas are there. 1 milligram of pizzas. Each pizza may be margarita and spicy chicken. 5 samples, suppose there are 5 samples. 1 milligram samples are there. Then they ask you to consume these samples and recognize what is the margarita pizza. So sometimes you need more sample size, right? Or more concentration to identify. You can just identify this is a pizza, but you can't explain what are the sensory characteristics. Like you can't further describe it. Can you understood? Can you understand?
Yes, yes.
Right. That's the
Okay,
difference.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then anything to discuss? So I have conducted this lecture for our last 3 batches and the Colombo University people. They were very interesting and I got very good comments. But in your batch, there are only 5 people at last day. I am not sure what happened. So anyway, the paper is different. I will share my paper. Wait a minute. So I will share the last paper. See the screen now? This was the last year paper, right? There are some structured questions about 10 potential odd numbers asked. So I suppose that you don't have questions now. If you have any questions, please email me or text me, then I will give you answers. Before the exam, tomorrow is the exam day, then before night, don't ask questions, right? I'm going to prepare your question paper today. So I will prepare few questions, easy questions and share. So you will have 1 or 2 structured papers, questions and 1 essay question. So don't write essays, just think and write and read the questions 2-3 times. Read the question 2-3 times and give your own answers, right? Okay, then best of luck. Any questions, please contact me. Thank you very much for being today, at least 4 members. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.